Hi, everyone. I'm Luke from Helix ML, and I'm really happy to be here today with Martin from AWA.
Hey, Luke. Good afternoon. My name is Martin. I'm Berlin-based. We're running a company called AWA Network. And basically, as part of what we do in AWA, basically we deal with use cases in which we use AI. We have a product that is an automation framework, and we started integrating OpenAI and other open source models step by step. And I guess that's interesting for our corporate and small and medium-sized enterprise customers.
Yeah, and so I met Martin in I think it was December last year. We just put the product out, one of Martin's colleagues joined our Discord and then quickly introduced me to him. And I knew from the beginning that we were going to get on really well. So I think we both run bootstrap businesses. We just seem like really aligned. So it's been a real pleasure working together. Could you talk a little bit about your business, AWA, like the types of customers you serve, maybe just a little bit of context both on industry and kind of company size?
Our main customers are corporations, international corporations, in different industries. We do have customers in the construction industry and telecommunications. Telecommunications is a little bit where we come from. So we're, let's say, specialized in telco, telephony, messaging, etc. And with AWA, we basically provide a couple of products, including what I mentioned, the automation framework, which is an open source project. So we are not just bootstrap like you guys, but we do open source. And here, actually, in the automation space, we try to be compliant. Maybe that's interesting with the European and, in that case, German laws, especially the compliance laws. And here it's becoming interesting because for many European companies, OpenAI, Microsoft, at the end of the day, it's not compliant, right? It's US American companies, even if they host in Europe. It's actually for companies, corporations, or even as small and medium-sized enterprises. It is somehow complicated to stay within European law and use them at the same time, right? So, and we have customers. They're all Europe, or most of them are based in Europe, so they have to follow European regulations. And that was at the beginning, the reason why we started this automation framework as open source, because there's like all the big guys, right? Like Zapier and others, they're all the same, again, US based. And I mean, you hand over your API credentials to those guys, and that's actually makes you pretty naked in the meaning of European regulations. So you give technically access to your application and your data, and that's basically complicated. So we started this, and pretty much soon we integrated OpenAI because there were use cases. Quite interesting. If you combine your Salesforce with a chatbot, and the chatbot actually acts as a natural language bot, right? That works pretty good with LLMs. And that is, in that case here, that was the motivation why we started looking into this. We integrated pretty much fast the OpenAI API and tested around with it. It's quite with good success, right? It's quite amazing how fast you achieve a WhatsApp chatbot that just talks to you, right, via WhatsApp, and that even integrates other systems like, Salesforce. Right?
Yeah.
Where actually the chatbot realizes, okay, this is the number you actually talk with, and they look it up. We look it up in Salesforce, then we talk with you with your name. And then it actually works in SMS and WhatsApp in whatever kind of channel, and it behaves natural language. So it's like talking to a person, right? And that was quite interesting. Apart from the compliance situation, so that was the point. So we dealt already for a couple of months last year with the usual suspects. We looked into the open source models, and then we ran into you guys. Basically, Sebastian, right, the guy you met over Christmas, and you spent your the end of December with, was very much interested in how you actually would make us consume open source LLMs. That's pretty much in a nutshell, why we're interested. So we're not like ML people. We're not. We are engineers, like about 50 people, almost 60 already, but and engineers. So we work we develop software. We are DevOps and developers, and but we're no AI experts, as a matter of fact. And so everything we did with it was, driven by our use cases. But we realized pretty fast that this is like a black box for us, even with some Python guys on board. Right? It's still it would have been a lot of effort to do this everything yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember being amazed when you first discovered us and we were talking on Discord. I think it was Christmas Eve when you found Helix. And by January the 1st, you'd already integrated it into your platformation. So I was like, these guys are amazing. They get stuff done. And yeah, from then on, I mean, do you want to talk? Maybe you could talk a little bit about about kind of the use cases that in particular that you wanted to use AI for, and then we can talk a little bit about kind of the project that we did together.
I think there is one main use case where what is REC, right? Where we have a corporate customer that has a product catalog with thousands of products, and usually their customers, they call someone, have questions, and buy something from the product catalog, right? So it's a manual procedure with a human being, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem here is that they cannot scale the sales team, the people on the phone. They cannot scale it to the demand. And so we thought it would be quite interesting, because most of the questions the customers ask, like, do you have this? How does it work? How much is it? Is it available?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. All those questions, right? You need to call a person to get answers to this, right? Because otherwise it's a B2B business, right? So there's no business if they don't get answers to those questions. And that's the first step, right? It's like having a sales team on the phone and having 10 people in the sales team. They work like as much as they can, but it doesn't scale. So they would have to have 20 people on the phone. They would have to have 50 people on the phone. And now the question was, how much of this workload could we actually take away from real people? Yes. And so that's in the construction industry, right? So there are people in cars between construction sites, right? Having those questions, right? And they don't have time. If they don't reach a person, they go to another one, right? As soon as they reach someone from whomever, right? They buy whatever they get from the person they reach or the company they reach. So they're losing business here, right? Because there are not enough people. So we said, okay, we could imagine, because we did already chatbots in the past, we could imagine to actually not it's not the correct word, but to actually have a chatbot that would answer like a person and knows about the product catalog, like the products and the conditions and the details. So, and imagine you're in a car or on a construction site, you take your phone and you call, right? A number, and then there's a person. It's not a person, but someone you talk to. Of course, that would be great to have an actually conversation and like use it, like speaking with voice. That's the next level. But we said it's easier to actually start with a chatbot that because it's asynchronous, so you can ask questions, and those guys use SMS and WhatsApp very naturally. So and that was the use case to say, okay, can we sell in a chatbot, right? And we answered and said yes. And we are trying to achieve this now. And together we actually already went quite far, I would say. So we can have a product catalog anticipated by the large language model, the open source models we use. And it is integrated in the chatbot, and you ask a question saying, do you have this? And if so, how much is it? Can I have it next Monday, etc.? So, and it answers, right, and tells you what a person on the phone would actually answer to.
Yes.
Next level would be what I just mentioned, voice. That would be even better because people like just calling. It sounds old-fashioned, but it's actually, that's quite challenging, I would say, because of the very synchronous way of doing this. You can be very fast with the answer. With chatting, it's easier because it's okay if you have a delay of, let's say, a few seconds. That's fine. Then we would actually help the clients to sell their stuff, right? And they don't need, or they need less people doing it, and they're very much interested in this because they're not able to scale their sales teams, and lose business on that. And that's basically one of the main use cases here.
Yeah.
And you don't need to talk, you don't need to call it AI because those guys, they just want to buy whatever they need. And then from there, whether you call it AI or not, they don't care. If they get it, what they want, right? And the next level, apart from voice, what I just mentioned, would be that they not just get the information, but they get the offer too. So we can integrate this with the automation framework, that they get an offer, they get a link, they get if they, buy or rent, whatever they do, they get a confirmation in the same medium on the spot. And they, once they stop using the chatbot, they made their business, right? That's of course the very end of what we really try to achieve. But I'd say we're already able to answer most of the questions.
Yep.
And the next step would then be to even execute the next steps in doing the business.
Yeah, like actually do a purchase. Yeah, yes. I love these AI use cases that actually drive revenue for the customer. When you have what it sounds like you're saying is that the customer has maybe a phone sales team, like a telesales team of 10 people who currently can't handle all of the demand for renting heavy machinery on building sites in Europe. And this AI use case is going to enable them to sell more with the same level of staff and increase their bottom line, increase their revenue. So that's super exciting.
That's exactly the funny thing about this conversation with the client is that they actually blocked OpenAI from the corporate perspective and said it's not allowed. We're not going to use this, right? And then we were kind of woke up and thought, it's like, okay, of course that's quite powerful, but if you block this per definition, right? Like it's a decision, a corporate decision to not do this. Then of course the open source stuff, which we were interested in anyways, came in, and we have no influence here. Whatever OpenAI does, OpenAI does. You can, and this is the one thing, and the second is the price, right? The way they calculate, because it's pretty much old-fashioned business, right? They say, okay, how many salespeople can I replace, right? Or not replace, meaning not setting them off, but if I need a team of 20 and I only have 15, can I actually make the 15 as good as 20, right? Is that possible? And if you show them that it's possible, right, then they come up and say, okay, I tell you how much I pay for 5 salespeople, right?
Yes.
And this is the money you have, right? So if you make business out of that, then you have green light. This is exactly the conversations we have with the clients. We say, okay, this is how much a salesperson per year costs me, and now you have the budget of 5 people. And actually, to make it better for me, it's better to just take 4, right?
Yeah.
But this is how they calculate it, right? It's very.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a huge opportunity.
They don't come with corporate, let's say, academic budgets.
Yes.
And they don't put it on their website that they use AI. They just, if they like the use case, if they see the money and the advantage, then they go for it and have the budget based on that simple calculation.
Yep, nice. So I wanted to ask then, kind of, what are some of the challenges of doing this yourself? Like when you looked at this maybe in December, you might have said I see this opportunity to try and use open source models to build a more kind of regulatory compliant AI solution. But what was hard about this, and what were the issues?
I'd say Python. So basically, let's say the technology stack as such is not covered on our side. We do have a couple of people that are good enough, let's say that way. So we do other things, right? In our core expertise. So there's a gap. The second is, of course, the topic itself is complicated, right? So it takes quite a while, even for senior engineers, to even get into, the details. So we were okay with looking into all the open source options. We could actually kind of find the infrastructure that would execute them, host them.
Yeah.
That was okay. But pretty much soon we realized that it changes every day almost. So it's a very dynamic thing. So if you don't have a standing team that deals with this and only this, it's really difficult to keep track with, the evolution of the topic. And we were not experts in the topic itself, right? So even if you can read, what the internet tells you, and you do try your best, you realize pretty much soon that it takes very special expertise and experience. And especially with the experience, the learning curve might be steep. But if people have been dealing with those topics, even before the hype, for many years, it actually, you cannot catch up in short period of time with that knowledge. So that's basically the one thing. And the second is a very practical thing. The second is you achieve quite a lot in a very short time.
Yeah.
But it is not good enough. And you cannot estimate the effort that it would take to actually get that step further where you could actually show it to a customer, right? So it was very when we started last summer to look into it, not what everyone did, using ChatGPT and creating some pictures or generating some pictures or getting some interesting answers to even complex questions. No, it was more from our perspective of how can we use this in our business, right? So and that was we've achieved quite some good stuff and invested small money, but we realized pretty much soon that if we really want to use this in our daily products and in our use cases, the estimating the effort, and B, even knowing whether we would be able at all, right? So, and if you really want to do this, you need to kind of have at least an idea of how much effort and time you need to invest to use it in your projects. And that's the second complicated stuff, right? That the learning curve is very steep, and if you don't have a standing team for that, quite a desperate move here, and B, the difficulty to plan the whole thing, right? That's and if you really want to do this, then this is the two things which you basically
exactly.
That's complicated.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think like even now, like the space of these open source models is moving very quickly, and just keeping up with it is a job in itself. Once you've identified a model and a use case, there's then quite a big gap between just like running the inference on the model and like actually integrating it with the business system. And we can talk about that, I guess, together when we talk about what we worked on. So I then wanted to move on to basically why did you start to use Helix?
Well, we found you. And, you did a lot of things, even at the very beginning, which we were looking into. And it came out of the box, basically. And I think that that Christmas, those days were very synergetic, right?
Yes.
There was the chemistry, as you already said, like it was very fast. You were interested. We were working the same way, and the way you were obviously experts on this, and so you filled a lot of gaps, right? From what I just described, right? Where we had a bad feeling with our own capabilities, and a second thing is that in our like product roadmap, what we wanted to achieve, right? What Helix does, fits perfectly. And then the paradigms as well, like bootstrapping, open source, etc. So senior engineers, to be honest, it's one of the things that we really don't like bullshitting.
Yeah,
like just having some smart slides with the right headlines.
Yeah,
it's just not the way you achieve things. And here that fits. I guess you had a similar experience with that, so it actually fitted very well. So for us, it was quite easy to sign that partnership with you after just a couple of days.
Perfect.
So it's a fit on the personal level, on the approach level, and then purely as well what Helix actually offers, right? So
yeah, cool. And thank you. And could you describe, please, kind of the implementation process? Like, how quickly were you able to get started when you did that initial testing with the product?
Well, I guess you remember as well is that we already integrated OpenAI API, right? So the first thing we asked, can you do an OpenAI API API? So
compatible. Yeah,
we wanted to have a compatible API. I think that was the first thing you did. Like you said, okay, and then a few days later, we had no effort. We just switched from OpenAI API to your API, and it did the same thing. So, and that was the basis for what you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that it was very easy to integrate you guys because you delivered that compatible API. So for us, it was almost no effort, right? To just, switch to your API because it actually looks the same. And that was the very first experience working together that we were able, more or less immediately, we were able to integrate Helix using open source LLMs via an OpenAI compatible API, which we already had. So it was a no-brainer for us, right? We could just ask for it. You guys delivered it. And that was basically the first very positive experience in that cooperation. So, and this is how it started.
Yeah. And how difficult was it to deploy on your own servers?
Sebastian should be here. So basically our DevOps team, we have a DevOps team that does all this. It took a while, to be honest, because we want to host this ourselves. So It's actually not that complicated from a technical perspective to actually do it. It's more like that we've never dealt with GPU. Mm-hmm. We've never actually understood in the past. We then understood, and started to compare the different infrastructures we could use. So we went to some European hosting providers. We went to AWS because, long relation to them. And funny enough is that they don't give you the GPU, even if it's extremely expensive. It's quite a difficult thing to actually get this expensive stuff. And as you know, we even, first time for years, we bought our own hardware, right? So to be able to have some freedom here. So we again have some servers in the office over here in Berlin. And so we did step by step. We compared the different options. And we tried around. That was basically what we did. And finally, Helix is simple, right? You guys, as a matter of fact, but running the LLMs, the way you do this, setting it up, testing it, took us some time. I would say, I think February, right? We talk about end of December, we started. I think in February, we had a first working infrastructure with you guys on, it was not Olama, what was it? Remember me? Or what model was it at the beginning?
Oh, it would have been Mistral.
Mistral, right? Yeah. Mistral. No, we had a first Mistral model running with Helix and I wouldn't even call it a database API, but a RAG API with data that were specific, etc. So it took us some time to actually get into this, but the team I think was good enough to actually cope with it, and now it's actually okay.
Yeah,
if you don't have any experience with that, maybe you should have some people to actually help you with that. And that was good as well here talking to you, right? There were so many details which you might find in the internet somehow after many hours.
Yeah.
And so it was good to have this Discord channel just shooting things like, I don't know, not able to make it work. Do you have an idea? So this was as well, even for the infrastructure stuff and the deployment stuff. And that was very good to have you guys involved.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a good partnership, or it is a good partnership, including around fighting with NVIDIA drivers and things like this. So cool. So what features or aspects of the product are most valuable to you, would you say?
Oh, I would start with the team. First, your team of developers, right, and experts. So I'd say the way you work and develop is very, very good for us because we can ask you what things, you give answers, and we can make a decision who's doing it or where, if we have an issue, where the issue is, and who would actually work on it. That's the one thing. And then obviously to Helix, the product, you are very dynamic in developing it. So and now we have to ask the question more like, what was the main feature in January and what was the main feature in March? And now I'd say, you extended the list of models you offer. As we started, at the beginning was Mistral, right? So now there's a long list. That's very good because the different models do have different, capabilities. And the ones we have a choice in models that has improved a lot over time. At the beginning was just the one. Then we have what you guys call the tool section, right? Where we can introduce our own data, right? Via an API. So if the product catalog comes with, we had a lot of discussions, as you remember, right? What is better, fine tuning or RAG, right? Accessing in real time a database and using that specific data or making a decision whether for the question of the user this is relevant, looking it up and actually handing it over to the LLM and then having a natural language answer enriched with that specific data, or fine-tuning it. So we had that discussion, and you have it both. We can fine-tune the models, and we can actually use an external data source in that. And I'm not yet done with the answering the question, what is the right approach? I guess both is needed.
Yeah.
But we actually we have that in the use case we discussed in the construction industry, right? The product catalog might be stable, so we even think about fine tuning it, so which is possible with you guys. And the second is, but there will be availability and prices, and they will change so often, right?
Yeah.
That it is meaningless to actually have them fine tuned, because you cannot fine tune the model like every second minute. So this is it, right? So since we use Helix programmatically, it's not that much that you have a cool web interface, right? It's more like that we can use it programmatically is very good for us, and that you have all the tools which we would have to achieve ourselves with open source models. So this is basically, there's a list of models. You have all the features around them. And we can use you programmatically, and we have access to you guys. And this is maybe the mixture that makes it very valuable.
Awesome. No, sounds good. Broadly, how do you think that Helix has helped you?
Well, taking a lot of work from our shoulders, which we would have never achieved, to be honest. So we're now in a position to offer something, right? And we stick to that industry, the construction industry use case. But now we can already show something to that specific industry, but we use as well to other potential clients.
Yeah.
And so we were able to achieve like a minimum viable product, which we already show in demonstrations. We get interest from other potential clients. So basically, apart from the technical work we did together and what we've achieved so far, we hope that we can actually make some serious business out of this and get some traction on the actual use cases we want to address in industry, to be honest.
Yeah. Perfect. That's great. Thank you. And where do you see the project going in the future?
I hope we're going to make money with each other. That's maybe the first thing. What I think is for us the most important, that we have I'm not sure about the right term, but the methodology, right? Because I really want to have this lifted from each time a technical project with expensive hardcore experts to a methodology I can actually execute on each use case, right? Yeah. It's every time a different industry, every time a different client, every time a different hosting environment. But I mean, at least in our space, we cannot come up with a 1 million euro project, right? No one will actually sign into this. There are these big corporations; they have their like R&D budget or something. It's not. We are not there, right? So we have like industrial clients, but they go into a project and they come and say, okay, what can we achieve? And they think about, let's say, 6 weeks and, 50,000 euro, right? And not about 18 months and a million. So, and that's why I think what we need to achieve is that what we do now and what we learn from what we've done so far and what we'll do in the future is that we actually lift this up to, let's say, okay, it's a 5-step approach, right?
Yep.
What data do you have that you don't want to have as part of an LLM? Do you want to operate the LLM yourself, which we already have a client who does it, right? Or is it okay that we do this for you, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to fine tune it for your industry specific stuff, right? Where would we get the data for fine tuning? And so that we define this methodology and say, okay, it's a 5-step approach. For the first step, we need to discuss this with the client. The second and the third step we can do ourselves. And the fourth step, we do the testing and the quality assurance that actually what we achieve is actually good enough for whatever the client wants to achieve. And the fifth step would be just handing over an operation, right? So this something like that, right? So this is at the end of the day, and I really hope that we can achieve this already in this year, right? That we kind of not offer a technical solution, but we offer like a methodology and saying, hey guys, if you want to achieve this, let's go those 5 steps, right? And it will take a couple of weeks. We need you with your knowledge from your industry. And then we can achieve this, and it's something where we will achieve what we actually know we can achieve, right? So it's not an academic R&D thing, and this is basically where I see it. And here we definitely need you guys as in a partnership, because from the experience so far, we see that we always run into some unplanned. Unexpected things, but that's what I dream of, right? That's basically it.
I completely agree with that idea of building a methodology, and I think a large part of this partnership that's been so valuable for me is kind of discovering that methodology together, and doing that collaboratively. And so, for example, this idea of a methodology where you can start with a client. You can find out what data they have. Data that's slow changing might be used for fine tuning. Data that changes rapidly, you might want to do an API integration using the Helix API tools capability. And then being able to plug in those data sources, do the fine tuning, do the tools integration. And then I think a large part of the methodology that we've been discovering together is then layering in this idea of, like you said, QA, with a sort of evals loop. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the process that we've been jointly developing for ensuring the quality of the outputs?
Yeah. I mean, that was like joint work. So we realized that we can have a setup that is complex already. You have, the system prompt, the API, and all these things like where you can tweak the behavior. And we found out that we did a lot. Like every time we tried, changing this and changing that. And as in software engineering, all the time you cannot just tweak around with the system and then have a structured process to get the expected behavior. So then, you guys started providing some so-called eval approach, right? And then we looked into it as well. And we wanted to have an open source approach that we can handle ourselves, execute ourselves, and, understand how it works. And as you remember, like we looked into DeepEval, right, as one of the open source frameworks. We made it applicable, let's call it that way, to Helix. And we are now able to actually use DeepEval. We even have a visualization approach to show the results. And here again, we have a setup, right? It does something, right? So the user is asking questions and gets answers, and it's sometimes good, sometimes not, right? And then you change whatever you can change, the system prompt, or the way you access data, or whatever, right? So all the options you have to actually hopefully improve the behavior. So now we can execute this evaluation, right? This approach every time we change something, right? We can check automatically afterwards whether it actually has improved the system or not. Yes. Because many times, you have to try. You have to try. So basically, and so this structured approach is just one of the steps of the methodology, right?
Absolutely.
It needs to be capable of actually comparing the before and the after, right? So So you cannot just tweak around in the system settings, let's call it that way, and hope that it actually gets better. You have to check whether it actually gets better. And if it gets better, then take it from there. Or if it doesn't get better, maybe go back to where you were before, right? So, and that's important. I would say we're still in the doing, right? So we've achieved quite some good progress here. But this as well as the very steep learning curve. Since we are software engineers, of course, QA is a core. Maybe it's not so sexy. It's not so sexy, but if you make your money with software development, then it is actually very important. And I think this is it doesn't get closer to QA to testing and software development. In this AI domain, the evals are very important because nothing comes just out of the box. So, and I'm quite happy here that we actually have done this together.
Yes.
Because I have the feeling that the deep knowledge, the inside knowledge to the domain, I'm pretty much comfortable that it stays with you guys. But if it comes to that this methodology, right? For us, it's important that we can actually execute or fulfill each step ourselves. So
yes, absolutely.
we will not become ML developers or AI experts as you guys are. But of course, doing the business, I want to be in the position to actually do the steps, and this evaluation, this QA step is important. So I'm happy that we are able to understand what it does and how it works, right?
Yeah. And it's almost like you wouldn't ship a software product without tests, and so you shouldn't ship an LLM product without evals.
Exactly. If you want to sleep well, then you should, right? So we like our sleep. So basically,
absolutely, yes, great. Cool. So just a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. So the first one, please, would you recommend Helix to other people?
Yes, I would.
Cool.
Maybe I already said so many positive things. I don't want to repeat them all, but basically, yes.
Thank you. Cool. And just quickly, how has your experience of the team been?
Very good. You're actually extremely senior, I would say. Yeah. So basically, I haven't seen anyone who's poking around, trying something, not knowing what it was. So basically, very senior guys. So, and so far as what I'm happy with, it's you work the same way we work. So basically, I guess since we come from the same domain, this might be like natural. But it's not always the case. So,
yeah, awesome. No, that's great. And yeah, it's definitely been great to kind of have the same ways of working. So, for example, when there's an issue, we can often get a new release shipped to you within hours. And being able to iterate quickly, I think, has been essential to making this collaboration work so far and get to the point where we are of having a good quality working natural language interface to a product catalog that almost works in multiple languages.
Almost. That's, you mentioned it. That
yeah. That's what we need to get to.
I guess maybe it's worth mentioning that multiple languages are definitely a challenge, and how to deal with, let's say, a chatbot that does work in English, in German, in Polish, in Turkish. I mean, we have to serve different languages and 90 specific use case. I think it would be much easier if we would have to cover one language only.
Yeah,
especially English would be like very easy because everything is in English and the LLMs are mostly trained, I guess, in English, and so we have a lot of additional steps to actually achieve this little extra requirement.
Yeah. absolutely. I think the good news is we're close there.
Yes.
With a few changes to the prompts. We've added some observability stuff recently that means we get much better visibility into exactly what's happening in each step. And yeah, we can now see the precise step where the language detection is slightly off. So yeah, hopefully in the next few days we'll get an improvement on that piece. But I think that just highlights a good example of this kind of iterative collaboration between the teams. So yeah, thank you so much, Martin. I really appreciate you joining for this conversation, and thank you so much.
Okay, cool. You're welcome. And actually, see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Cool.
It's going to be a